Okay, Dr. RJB, I wanted to talk a little bit about appendix surgery. The appendix is found in the what's called the right lower quadrant. So it's going to be in the abdomen just above the hip. And the appendix is what they call a vestigial organ. In animals, the appendix actually is part of their digestive tract. In humans, it's just a tiny little thing about the size of your little finger. It really doesn't have a lot of purpose these days. In the old days, they used to just kind of whack it out anytime they opened up the abdomen. And then they found, because there is some material in the appendix, that it wasn't a smart move to just remove it every time. So in other words, if you did gallbladder surgery and you removed the appendix, that's two surgeries, not one, and it means two complication problems. And of course, if you dare spill anything from the appendix, that's material that can cause an infection. So these days, removing an appendix is not done unless it needs to be removed. Now, sometimes when your appendix is bothering you, they can actually use some antibiotics to try to calm it down. Just depends on how severe the attack is. The appendix pain is actually initially sometimes under the left ribs, and then it travels down to the right lower abdomen area. Why this happens is kind of crazy. The nerves in the abdomen are not location nerves. They're mostly pressure nerves. In other words, if I grab hold of your liver, you won't be able to know when I'm grabbing your liver. You can't tell the location because the nerves in the abdomen are not location nerves. So sometimes the pain, can be in the middle of the abdomen for an appendix. Sometimes it can be the upper abdomen. But most of the time, as time goes on, it travels down to the right lower abdomen area. So eventually it's pretty obvious what's going on for the doctor who's examining. Also, of course, even if the pain is someplace else, if I push on the appendix and it hurts you in the middle of the abdomen, doesn't matter where you feel the pain. Just the fact that I pushed on your appendix and you felt the pain, we know that the appendix is inflamed. Like I said, sometimes they try to take care of this with an antibiotic, but if things don't work out, usually then you need to have surgery to remove the appendix. In the old days, there was an adage that the sun shouldn't rise or set on an appendix. And what that meant is that usually within 12 hours, you should have the surgery. So again, if somebody comes in with a bad appendix and it cools off and everything is doing great, they could send the person home on some antibiotics and see how things go. But if the pain continues, the surgeon needs to be advised and surgery should be performed. Again, these days, they use a scope to do appendix surgery, so it's not as big of a deal as it used to be. Once again, in the old days, they had to make an incision. The surgeon's hand would go inside, grab the appendix. He would tie it off and then cut it. All these things cause discomfort. And so after appendix surgery, you had a lot of discomfort. I remember when I had my appendix removed, I couldn't even walk too much. I remember I was laying on the couch most of the day, and if I needed to change the channel on the TV, we didn't have remotes in those days, so I just rolled off the couch. I rolled over to the TV set. I changed the channel. I rolled back over to the couch and got back on the couch. I didn't want to have to think about sitting up and standing up and walking over to the TV set. My stomach was hurting too much. So You did the best you could in the old days. These days, because of the scope, again, you're off for a few days after the scope surgery. It's much faster recovery, much easier to get back to work, much easier to get back to your normal activities. So because of new surgical techniques, this is not a bad surgery like it used to be. So if you do have appendix, you can figure out that it's not going to be as bad as you thought.